join me in welcoming John Picard as our speaker.
I'm going to dampen your expectations. We're just going to have a conversation. How do I follow that? Well, I'm super honored to be here. A lot of familiar faces, and what an amazing day I had. I got to spend most of the day touring your wonderful summit facility. And this week was really interesting for me, too. I went back to Pass Christian, Mississippi. And does anybody know Pass Christian? Well, I went to school there. And I went through Hurricane Camille, and we survived. My dad built the NASA test facility there that tested the Saturn V1 booster rockets. And we were speaking at Greenville, and we were talking about all these breakthrough technologies. And I just remembered my dad's whole presentation on when I was getting ready to get into construction. You know, he said, "John, why would you ever get into construction?" And I said, "I love it." He said, "You know, when we were building John Glenn's rocket to take us out of orbit, Glenn was sitting in the capsule seconds before liftoff, and he just went, 'Oh my God, this is 1,630,000 moving parts. Man's greatest technology focused into one thing to take me into orbit, beyond the gravity of this planet.'" And then he said, 2 seconds before liftoff, he said, "Oh my God, I'm sitting on a pile of low bids." And off we went. And he said, "Do you really want to get into construction where it's just low bids and we're meeting building code, which is just one step above breaking the law?" And I'm like, oh my God. And so I did pretty well in school, not perfect, but I became dangerously knowledgeable about building systems. And I ended up building houses that were like this hotel. I built the 4 most expensive houses in the world. They were monuments to waste. They were for people who had way more money than sense. My last house had a $72,000 a month electrical bill when they weren't home. $50,000 water bill, 4-inch copper sprinkler lines. These were monuments of waste, monuments. But they weren't hotels, but they might as well have been. We served 60 lunches a day. We had a 10,000 amp single phase service. That's a lot of juice. We had 200 cars. It was crazy making. And one day, one of my clients said, "I got the operating costs for this house. It was $500,000 for the month." And he said, "This has got to stop." I said, "You weren't even here." But when you spend $2 million to put Christmas tree lights and you're putting 4-inch copper sprinkler lines in and you're putting in fully matured trees, the craziness came on. So one day, he said, "We're having a birthday party and a wedding, and Mrs. Davis would like you to handle all of the exterior work." Well, I built a 15,000 square foot underground storage facility, much like yours. And they said, "We need you to go to Denver to get a piece of fabric to match for the umbrella for a wedding." And I went, wow, this is mission critical. To get a piece of fabric this big. But you never know what's going to happen on one of these crazy making trips. On the way back from Denver with the fabric in hand, the pilot said, "Hey, tomorrow we're going to service the jet. We got to take it to Atlanta, so we got to stress the engines on the plane. So we're going to take the plane up to 54,000 feet. That's the ceiling limit of the plane. It's a little tricky. We might lose an engine and have to restart. Could be kind of like the zip lines out where you are, but in a little bit different situation, a 20,000-foot fall." And he said, "But it hasn't happened in a while." So we heated up the engines, got to 54,000 feet, and he said, "Hang on, we're going to roll the plane over." And they rolled it over, and I got to see the curvature of the earth. And that was it for me. That's when I knew I couldn't keep building like this, and I couldn't keep doing what I was doing just to make money. And I needed to be something that was like what was driving my dad to be part of the moon shot. I never knew I was on the beginning of my work, which is an Earth shot. And it was incredible to land and to take a couple years off and to just go out and see what's going on in the world and come back. And I never had the experience of being a Boy Scout. I never had the experience of getting that close to nature. but it was incredible to see how the world works, to see where we are at our worst and we're at our best at the same time. It was amazing. And so when I came back from that crossroads, I saw two films, one called Women in Flowers and Where Have All the Dolphins Gone? And it talked about these two industries and what it took to have cut flowers and what it took to have tuna and how tuna swim underneath dolphins. And to get tuna, we have to kill dolphins. And it was just horrifying. And I wanted to be part of that solution. I wanted to help Sam Labuddy, just one man who took some video footage of dolphins being killed. And they shut down the entire industry. Just one person, one scout, one vision, one idea, one heart connected to the mind, pushing to do the right thing. And he shut down the entire industry, and they recorrected. And so I thought, well, what can I do? And I asked Sam, he said, go back and build a house that represents the best you can do for sustainability, which we didn't even have that word. Go build a house that doesn't take, but maybe leave something behind. And so I tried to do that. And I'll tell you about my house in a minute. So I built a house on Green Avenue, cash. I lived in a trailer with propane, which ran out. I had to take cold showers like you produce. But we have a solution for those cold showers. Sorry, I wasn't firing on my own coordinates. I'm just trying to tell you that but I took some cold showers too, so I know what it's like to be out at the summit. But I built this house that was off the grid before its time, 1987 to 1990. I designed it and I built it in 6 months. It was ugly though. It looked like the steel box the house across the street should have come in. I mean, it was a steel box, and it had a tracking array that followed the sun. The tracking array was twice the size of this screen. You could tell what time of day it was, but nobody liked my house. My neighbors hated the house. Had a natural gas fuel car with a pump that pumped the gas into the car all night, and I drove for 40 cents a gallon. And then a couple years later, the earthquake hit in California, and the city came to its knees. Everywhere the power was out. It was 5:30 in the morning. People are out in the street walking around in their pajamas. And my house was off the grid. The alarm, when the power goes out, it opens the drapes. I was a beacon for my neighbors, especially the ones that didn't like the house. They showed up, brought their kids into the living room, and I made cocoa and put the TV on. And they were in my house, the house that they didn't like, but the house that protected them from the scariest next thing that was about to happen. What was that? The aftershock. The second earthquake that we're all ready to get, right? And the house started shaking again, and we were all in that space together. And it was incredible. The years after, on the anniversary of the earthquake, people would come to my house and give me gifts. They would come to the house on Halloween, and they just turned up with so much consideration and love for me. And yet the house didn't look right, but when I walked into the house, when you came in the front door, there was something right about it. It was the feeling you got that, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, but what my intentions were and what I was trying to do, it worked. And so my neighbors became true neighbors. When I was up at the summit today, I was thinking about you guys, you young guys with the zip lines and all the cool stuff that's up there. I love it. But how lucky are you to be able to spend time in a place like that, to get that close to nature, to go out into a world with 7 or 10 billion people on the way, right, that completely are disconnected from that. So the one thing I felt all day was, where's the world going? How do the Boy Scouts fit into that? And is sustainability something that you guys could really move the needle on? And I was sitting there writing a couple of more things about Boy Scouts, and I was just, I'm thinking, why couldn't the Boy Scouts be the lead? Where's John? Why couldn't sustainability in the Boy Scouts be 5 or 10 years from now, be this incredible position for your group, right? It could be, I mean, no one's taken the lead on it. The USGBC is what it is, but there's not a youth movement. They're not, the millennials are not in it. And you guys, from my standpoint, are the most naturally fit group of people coming from where you are, allowing them to, you know, camp and be a part of this whole thing. Don't worry about those guys. Tune them out. Thank you. So I really think there's a natural fit here, and I compliment you guys for taking it on, because for years I was working with companies that just couldn't do it. Interface was really unique. I mean, Ray Anderson came along and wrote the book and created this wonderful climb on Mount Sustainability. He was fearless, and look what happened to the company. Because he was fearless, he mapped it out, and in 10, 15 years' time, he doubled the size of the company. The product that they make their carpet out of, they're reclaiming it, making new carpet from the old for 65% less than original. And their customers are now becoming their suppliers. They're closed looping a petrochemical. They'll be carbon neutral in the next 10 years. That's extraordinary. And so when a company like that can do it, anybody can do it. So past Christiane, my only experience, kind of like a Boy Scout, was we built tree houses there, and I went back last weekend to see if the tree houses were there, and guess what? They were there. My bamboo tree houses survived Katrina and survived Camille. But the first set of tree houses that my brothers and I built, we were contractors then, we built them, and then we burned them down to build the next set, and we went from contractors to developers. And that was a big jump. And then from there, my career became Crazy Houses and then Green Avenue. And then I started working for the Gap and Sony and doing the greening of the White House, which was an unbelievable job. It was the usher of the White House telling me while we're in the bathroom that nothing will ever happen. I've been here for 3 presidents, and when I flushed the toilet, I saw the Potomac go down. And I looked at the window air conditioner, and it was on, and the radiating heater was down below, and I said, I think we're going to get something done here in dear time. And sure enough, we cut the energy in the old executive office building. But I was stuck. I was stuck on the stairs of the Indian Treaty Room, and 4 guys came to rescue me. Again, the target point in my life, I never knew this was going to happen. It was just aiming in the right direction, trying to do something. Someone said, you need to do what you did with your house at the White House for Clinton. And so I'm just coming out of this house that just barely got over the line, and I'm at the White House, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I started looking around like I walked around this property today, and there was plenty to do. But I was still over my head, and the 4 guys that came in to help me, within 6 months, they started the USGBC. And today, there's billions of square feet, hundreds of thousands of members. We just did the conference a few days ago in the Superdome. It was extraordinary. And no one ever saw a hockey stick of growth around green building. But it's just been an extraordinary event. So as a group, don't underestimate. Aim really high with that target point. Imagine that the Boy Scouts could lead the millennials. Imagine the Boy Scouts could be the first place that you get that real natural step to what sustainability could be. And then bring that home, and then bring that back to college, and then bring that into your families and into your work. It could be an awesome opportunity. I was going to talk about greening Greenbrier, but I'll just tell you, I walked around, and for those of you, I mean, the first thing, these are the lights in the room, right? So I know a lot about lighting and LEDs, and so this is an incandescent bulb. I just want to say, 90% of the energy that goes into this bulb went off as heat. Only 10% of the electricity that goes to this bulb goes off as visible light. And we just can't sustain that. I mean, and Mr. Justice probably paid a lot for this property, but he's paying too much to operate it. And next year, John, is one of the things I wanted to do is we really should take 50 Eagle Scouts and walk through here for a week and do the greening of the Greenbrier and turn this into curriculum. You could cut the operating costs in this facility by 50% easily. All these single pane windows. This whole property could be based on solar income, geothermal. We could have an extraordinary experience, and the guest experience is going to be better. It's not going to be more efficient light. It'll be better light. It would be something we should do. The transportation, the kitchen gardens, the landscape could be edible. There could be wind turbines. The wind turbines out at the summit were just extraordinary. And I saw the story about this place. There's the bunker. So greening this would be the modern day version of the bunker. I mean, we don't need bunkers anymore, but we need places that are net zero, off the grid, examples of what's possible. And this could be an extraordinary opportunity to do that. So sustainability is changing. We're absolutely in a world where we're not just designing, but we're design innovating. And I moved up to the Silicon Valley about 6 years ago to get involved with companies that make disruptive and transformative technologies, like your company, Scott, with Enlighted. And a company here that I brought this glass. This is one of the showcase pieces of glass that I brought to the USGBC for the Greenbelt conference the other night. We were working on a program called Drawdown, which is 6 technologies that when you combine them, we could lower the carbon impact in the world by 50% in less than 10 years. So this is glass made just like the glass that's all around all our commercial office buildings, but it's electrochromic, which means it'll go from clear to black in a matter of about 1.5 minutes. And I'm going to show you this right now. And if we skinned the world's buildings with this glass, we took off all the glass that's out there, and we skinned the world with this. You see how it darkened already? See how it's almost black? We would block the heat that enters our buildings in the world that we condition with air conditioning equipment. This is more or less molecular air conditioning. It blocks the heat gain into a building. You take this and you skin half of the commercial buildings in the United States, and you lower the operating costs by 25%. You lower the carbon impacts dramatically. You downsize all of the in-building systems. With this glass designed in a new building, you'd have half of the air conditioning equipment, half of the electrical loads, half of the pipes and switches would exist. And so with this technology, it costs 3 times the amount of normal glass today. But in the future, the resilience of that building and the future-proof aspect of that building, it's going to not just make the building more efficient, but it's going to raise the portfolio value of these buildings. And that's what's happened in sustainability and in greening buildings. The bottom line of green has not been black until just recently. And that happened when things started to become smart. The reason I went to the Silicon Valley was I realized that nothing's going to outweigh digital efficiency, and nothing's going to outweigh the efficiency of us connected to what I call Screen One. I moved to the Valley to work with people who are willing to risk it all to invent a transformative and disruptive technology. So in lighting, there's disruptive technologies in LED and controls. Do you mind if I brag on you a little, Scott? So Scott's company is my favorite story. Scott has a company called Enlighted, and they make a tiny sensor. And I'm going to use this candle as an example. So this is the sensor. It's called Blackbird. It's about this big. And Scott's original target point of their company was to just dim lights. So let's pretend we're all on the 20th floor of the Deutsche Bank headquarters in New York at 60 Wall Street. And you just closed a big deal. I mean a smoking deal. And you're buying the beers. And the whole room, we've had 2 or 3 beers. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And a couple of young kids, I'm going to pin you guys to the floor right now and blame you for the whole part of the rest of the story. So these 2 guys have a couple beers too many. They take a couple bags of popcorn, put them in the microwave oven. And this one, he's a mathematician and a banker, and he cycled the popcorn twice, duh. And they smoldered. Well, this one goes, we're not going down for this. He hides them in the recycling bin and the trash can in the kitchen, which was built 4 years before with no permits, with no fire life safety equipment in it. And Scott's company's censored. It does a couple of cool things. It can see us. It can read us as heat maps, not like video, but like heat blobs. You and I are a blob, little aura. You move your hand and get closer, and you'll be one blob. Anyway, it sees us all in the room. So it has this ability to create heat maps. And it saw this fire starting in the trash can on Saturday morning at 9:30 when one of the new employees all the way out in California was looking and showing off his new job to his parents with his key fob that came in from India to see his son's new Silicon Valley job. And Dad walks by the big screen, and he sees 60 Wall Street, Deutsche Bank headquarters. And he sees a predictive fire alarm, and he goes, "Son, there's an alarm for a fire on the 20th floor." And he goes, "No, Dad, that's fake. It's just a video. It shows what it can do." And he says, "No, no, no, son. It's not true. There's a timestamp on it. You better call your boss or you won't have a job on Monday." And he calls, and sure enough, the guards go up, and the kitchen's ablaze. And this is where the story gets really interesting. So that week, Deutsche Bank called up Scott, actually, and said, "You got to remove those sensors from the bank because they're interfering with our Federal Reserve wireless network for doing trading. It's against the law for us to have those in the building." And Scott goes, "Come on, we've only been in a week. We need another week to test this." And so we said we'd take it down. Well, you guys saved the company. You put the company on the map, because the guy that told us we had to take the system down on Tuesday after the fire says, "I never say this, I was wrong, I want you back." And we came back and we met with the owners of Deutsche Bank's property, Allianz, the insurance company that insured 90 million feet of the bank's property. And Allianz and the owners and the facility director said, "So every one of these sensors on every light can be a fire life safe, could protect, could see us and can save lives?" And we said, "Yeah, every light in the building now is a fire protection device. And it can see the heat maps." And you know who's in the room with us? Battalion Chief of Station 54 in full fire gear, grumpy as ever. "Nobody does anything. This is the most highly regulated industry in the world. Fire life safety. Nobody can do anything to it. I got to see this." And he said, "So how's it work?" I said, "Let me tell you how it works, but let me ask you something first. Since 9/11, how many men have you put in the buildings?" Long pause. Gets real emotional. Said, "We haven't put a single man in a building since 9/11. We're not going into a building unless we have real clear insight as to what the condition of the building's going to be. That's what's going on." I said, "So you want to know what it's going to be like to fight fires with this little tiny sensor that nobody even knew they were inventing at the time they started his company? You're going to leave the fire station on an alarm, you're going to open up your iPad, and you're going to see 60 Wall Street, and every floor, every person in the building, you, where you are," and the battalion chief says, "Okay, there's the total occupancy of the building." Imagine if we could have seen everyone in the buildings, right? Imagine if he could have seen the safe exits. And imagine if we could push a button and have the lights that we control flicker towards the safest exit. Imagine. And imagine that he's going into a building now where he has that visual data and that transparency to do what he does, right? Which is save lives. He now sees where the fire, oh, and by the way, he can take the clock on the iPad and he can run it backwards and he can see the fire when it was 1 inch in diameter. And it could be burning the entire floor. But the point is, he has the visibility to go change the situation. He can really do his job now. That data visualization changed everything. And that's when it hit me. If 7 billion people could connect to buildings that are sensor networks, that this data is the new fuel for my rocket for the Earthshot, 7 billion people connected, 7 billion minds, the power of one, like we talked about at Interface for years, the power of one. Raised to tell this story about the power of one. People didn't get it, and he used to use this story where this kid was on the beach in Florida, and the night before, there was a super high tide, and all these starfish washed up on the beach. Millions of them, I mean millions of them. And this kid's just throwing them back in one at a time. And this man comes up to him and said, "Son, you got to stop. There's millions of them. It's just not going to make a difference. It's not." And then he throws that one out and he goes, "It mattered to that one." and that's how I think about it. We never knew. The valuation of Scott's company 3 or 4 years ago was decent. It was probably 15 or 20 million. But today, that IP, those patents, that ability to save 60% on energy, and these heat maps, and those heat maps can tell you where to vacuum the carpet. They can tell you how you utilize that building or if the furniture system's working. The data off of his sensors now has made his company worth 400 or 500 million. And it's probably going to be more. And so you never know on your target point when you're out to do something that much good, you know, how great it could be. And now their company's system is talking to all of the other in-building systems, and that's what we talked about at the Greenville conference. When Scott's glass and Scott's lights start talking to this glass, and the glass starts talking to the Nest thermostat, and starts talking to the heating and air system, all the way back to the utility, we're going to have the visualization on waste in the built world. And that is going to be a game changer. We're going to be able to save billions and billions of dollars, but more importantly, we're going to be able to lower the carbon footprint of the planet in an incredible way. And you know what's wrong with the built world? We don't do bold. We do incremental, like little tiny moves. The other thing my dad said was, you know, when we were going to the moon, we were 90% of the time going there and coming back, we were off course, 90% of the time. I said, Dad, how did we get there and back? And he said, tiny mid-course corrections. Now, there's a ton of uncertainty in the world today. I don't see it. I think we're in transition. I have never felt like this country is more powerful than it is now. And it is not based on brute force. It is based on the young, broad-thinking minds of the people I work with in 20 companies that are fearless. They're not afraid to break something. They're not afraid to try something and fail, to fix it and go again. And Boy Scouts, that's part of it, right? You guys you're always trying things, and you don't get it the first time. And the thing that I heard most, I have a 10-year-old and I have an 8-year-old at home. And I heard that 17, 18, 19-year-old boys help 10, 9, 8, 7-year-old kids. That doesn't happen in the world. Not in my world, not where I live, not where I've grown up. And it's just extraordinary how much is there for the Boy Scouts to just really drive into sustainability. It's extraordinary. So some of the technologies that are out there, there's disruptive technology in cooling and air conditioning out of data centers, 3D printing, the maker movement. There's extraordinary software that's coming into this brute force world. The first industrial revolution was built on low bids, building code, right angles, everything by schedule and by budget. But now people are starting to think about life cycle. If you go to Google today and you ask the leaders at Google, what are they doing with their new campus? They're going to spend billions building a new campus. And I said, fundamentally, what's going on? They go, we're heading closer to nature every day. You guys are already there. Everybody's trying to get to where you already are. I was trying to bring it back all day to like the Boy Scouts and everybody involved are already there. And it's just extraordinary that, you know, we're here as quickly as we are too. The cadence of change is just unbelievable. In geologic time, the amount of stuff that gets invented every day in the valley, hundreds and hundreds of new breakthrough disruptive technologies that could change the world. So the stuff we're doing today, it's not a spectator sport to save the planet. You have to jump in. You have to be involved. You have to take some risks. Wow, I'm done, but I don't feel like I've said what I wanted to say. No, I don't. And I normally, you know, I'm normally scripted a little bit differently than I was today, but I had an interesting day with you guys. I heard a lot about your challenges. It was rough. It kind of, I actually dampened down and pulled a whole bunch of things out of my talk, because I just thought they were just going to be, and I don't know, you probably thought my talk was way beyond, but I pulled it back a lot. And the reason was I was concerned that I wouldn't leave you with this message that I think you guys are one of the most amazing groups to make a move on this space. I've spent the last 25 years being told no, being told that what I'm doing is nice, but we're not going to do it at scale, except for your dad. And if you guys weren't worth so much money today, you wouldn't have done it either, but you did. But some people are driven from that standpoint. But companies like Walmart, right, who have no reason financially to drive that. But Walmart, in the little things that they do, they create waves of influence, extraordinary waves of influence on packaging, material sciences driving the market. They have purchasing power and biceps like you can't believe. The Boy Scouts is a trusted, how many years, 100-year organization? People trust this organization with the youth culture of this country, and you could really move the needle. There are so many other great influential companies, but there's a few. Hey Rick, can you, when I talked about incremental and bold moves, there's this group I work with called Project X, and they have a really short video that I think kind of sums up my message, and I'm wondering if you can run that right now, and then I'm going to close with a couple more comments, and then some questions real quick. And then also, I want to do this Greenbrier restoration.
The actual moonshot is wonderful, inspirational, poetic, beautiful, involves great technical challenges, genuine heroism. It brought the world together. But think about the Polynesian island on the dugout canoe, deciding one day they were going to go that way. No one had ever been there before. No one even knew there was anything that way before. It was amazing, and it changed the world.
People can set their minds to magical, seemingly impossible ideas, and then through science and technology, bring them to reality. And that then sets other people on fire, and other things that look impossible might be accomplished.
Galileo is such a hero, and thinking big, and what he represents to me is both curiosity and wonder that humanity had, that he had that pushed him and drove himself to invent and work on our first telescopes that allowed us to see the moon, and here we are.
These aviation pioneers were figuring out as they went. No one really knew how to build an airplane, right? No one knew how to fly an airplane. It was amazing and crazy and wonderful, and they wanted to explore.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Bell, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said because it is there.
There's so many challenges in the world, and you can feel daunted by that, and sort of oppressed by that, or you kind of say, how might we think differently about this?
Everyone else in the world is working on the next 10%. If you can be the one that delivers that 10 times improvement, you have a chance to really change things.
If you want cars to run at 50 miles per gallon, fine, you can retool your car. But if I tell you it has to run on a gallon of gas for 500 miles, you have to start over.
You need a lot of courage in this work, and you need a lot of persistence. And one of the things that's really critical is not only having the courage to keep trying every day or thinking big, even if you don't really 100% believe it's possible, like you might think, this might be possible, have the courage to try. That's how the greatest things have happened.
You don't spend your time being bothered that you can't teleport from here to Japan. Because there's a part of you that thinks it's impossible. Moonshot thinking is choosing to be bothered by that.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Humanity's progress has been a series of amazing, audacious things, from the very small and personal to the great big and grand. And we are a species of moonshots. And to me, that's like a really amazing point of inspiration.
I think our ambitions are a glass ceiling to what we can accomplish.
When you find your passion, you're unstoppable. You can make amazing things happen. It's been true throughout history.
I believe in the human spirit, and I believe that there are always going to be crazy people who will get out of bed one morning and say, you know what, I think I can go to space alone. I most wouldn't do it. But I think that if we become afraid to take these great big risks, we stop inspiring people. We stop achieving things. And the biggest nightmare scenario is that we won't have what it takes to solve the really big challenges.
When Kennedy said that we would put a man on the moon, it's about the fact that he said, we don't know how to do this yet, and we're going to do it anyway. And that sense chills up everybody's spine. Because if that happens, what could we do?
Cool, huh? So there's a lot of power in this room, and there is an unlimited amount of power with you. You guys are it. You're in the wheelhouse. We're going to hand this thing off to you. All the low bids, no extra charge. It is a big job to maintain balance on this place called planet Earth that's so many miles from the sun. that every day provides this magical thing called life. Every day, right? We've been given a gift, and we have a perfect storm. You can call it climate change, you can call it whatever you want, but there is a perfect storm based in natural law coming at us. And there's a lot of things that just happen to us as humans. The train may be going off the track, but I'm worried about the train coming at them. So for the rest of my life, and I had trouble tonight getting this out, but this is it. This is all that I wanted to say. I have spent my entire life to figure out what I figured out, which is if I can take all this technology and I can connect the built world, and I'm lucky enough to connect everybody to that, and that human touch and that system of connectivity comes together, that power of one will be what it takes to get this job done. And that is happening in this country right now. And that target point for me is way out there. But every time I try to do some good, and my target point is save the world, wonderful, amazing people come along to lift me and carry me along that journey. It's extraordinary. And so that's your challenge. I don't even know how to say this. If you guys don't do it, shame on you. You have it. You're so close to that solution group that we need out there. So just go for it. Go for it. Just like this. It's an unbelievable chance for you. I'm going to end with this little story that Paul Hawken told me once. I think you guys will like this. It's about a third grade class, and the teacher asked the third grade class to draw a picture of something that they love. And so the teacher walking into the room, and she's talking to people, and she comes up to Damon, and she goes, "Hey, Damon, what are you drawing a picture of?" And he goes, "I'm drawing a picture of my brothers and fellow scouts out at the summit having a blast this summer." You go, "Cool." And then the teacher goes over to my driver, David Sheets, and she goes, "David, what are you doing?" He goes, "I love cars. I love cars." And he's drawing a picture of cars. Then the teacher comes around and says to Yoshiko, "Yoshiko, what are you drawing a picture of?" And Yoshiko looks up and she says, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And the teacher stands there for a minute, turns around and just goes, oh, looks at Yoshiko and goes, "Yoshiko, you can't draw a picture of God. We don't know what God looks like." And Yoshiko took a minute and she looked up at the teacher and she said, "You will when I'm finished." Dream big, you guys. Take big risks. All this stuff you hear about in the Valley, all these enabling web companies, whether it's Facebook or Google or PayPal or Palantir or Amazon, all these algorithms, all this digital stuff, it's just rooted in fearlessness around people trying to enable people. That's it. And these guys are making bank in biblical proportions because that's the payday for an enabler. Why wouldn't we want to grow the Boy Scouts of America 10,000% on the back of an engine like this? You can do it. It's early days. Sustainability is a startup that needs second and third round funding. Sustainability needs people who are grounded, who have moral support, who have a compass like you've given these kids compasses. And I wasn't a whole person until one day I woke up and I said to myself, God, I'm a leader in this space, and I better start acting like it. And that was another crossroads in my life for me to find my whole person. My dad was so busy putting us on the moon, he didn't have time for me. And I'm sure there are a ton of scouts whose dads haven't had time for them. And you guys could make they get into this rough world to become those world leaders. So all the pieces, a connected world, all the technology, all of the math and the zeros and ones, and this is screen one. The entire world's going to be on screen one. This is the dashboard of our lives. It's just a device right now, but all the applications for secure water, all the applications for security and safety and understanding, then we're walking into a space that there's just too much energy. I was besides myself when I saw that this property is just, there's 1 million of these and all of these single pane windows. I want to bring Mr. Justice some justice. I want to help him. It's not what it costs to buy this place, it's what it costs to operate it. And things are going to get tough. And this man's a smart businessman, and if the economy slides and people aren't coming here, they're going to close it again, right? This thing had some financial trouble. It would be bulletproof, and it would ride out all the economies if this thing was net zero. And this property could be net zero. So here is my gift to you. I will spend 5 days here on my own nickel with you as Boy Scouts to teach 50 people how to green a monster like this, and we will kill it. Because when we did the Grand Wailea, we had a dinner just like this, and we were eating dinner, and the chef came out and he said, "Hello, everybody. Are you enjoying your salad?" And we said, "We are." And he goes, "Do you like the Maui onions?" And we said, "We love the Maui onions." And he goes, "Look out to the window. That is the fields that the Maui onions were grown in. The problem is we shipped them to Houston, and they got packaged, and then we bought them back again." Thanks for having me. Got my second gift. My second gift is I'm going to take 10 of your best. I will take 2 as paid interns for 90 days in any one of my 7 startups, and I will take 10 people for a 2-day tour in the Silicon Valley, inside the trade secret rooms, inside the edge, so that you just get blown up like I am. And you will never be the same. You will be able to dream big. You will know that you're here to fail because there is no failing, just attempting and going for it and doing the best you can and then pulling back and re-going for it again. That's what's going on in the Valley. That's what this stuff is all about. And it's extraordinary. You guys get it. I know. You guys live in Screen 1. But take Screen 1 and bring the other 7 billion people into it, right? Let the Boy Scouts be an organization that populates that. Let's take the summit and make it a wonderful, corporate training center and all the things. And your place is awesome. It's timeless design. It's durable. It's super quality and construction and all the things that, that thing will look the same 20 years from now. If we built like that everywhere, we wouldn't have these problems. So good on you for building that place, and good on you guys as an organization who's made it so far. And I hope I can help fuel maybe another 100 years. I read your founder's letters and when he was dying, and there's some extraordinary messages in there that still hold true today. So God bless you guys. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you again, I'm sure.
Thank you, John. You exceeded expectations yet again. And I will tell you, we had 55,000, what was the number, 57,000 Eagle Scouts last year. And you'll meet some of the fine ladies here who are on our venturing leadership and our co-ed program. And I know our marketing people are monitoring online what we're doing right now. And for us to be able to choose those 10 will be a fun journey because we will give you the best that we have. And those of us who are at the conference get to meet some of these Eagle Scouts that have gone on these journeys around the world. This is just as important as going to Antarctica and going to the Amazon and to go into Silicon Valley. And I appreciate the invitation and the mentoring. And John spent a lot of time today encouraging us not to leave this property, that if we're really about leaving a legacy and if we're really about making a contribution, and he mentioned Jim Justice many times. Jim is one of the most generous people we have in the Boy Scouts of America. He has gifted a significant multi-million-dollar donation to the summit for the Justice National Scout Camp, and has literally led the state of West Virginia in their support for us. And for us to work with him and give something back in a unique way, you've given us a roadmap to work with him in a new way. And we're excited about taking that on. So I just want to say thank you for joining us. And let's give John another round of applause, please, for your gift.